In the run-up to the deadly crash earlier this week, the head of the FAA, this is Michael Whitaker, was apparently forced to resign due to the intervention of Elon Musk, whose fingers are in basically every government pie these days. And perhaps we'll talk about some of the more recent reporting soon. But as a result of him resigning, the agency in charge of aerial safety didn't have a Senate-confirmed leader during the actual crisis. And so Musk had called for his resignation way back in September. This is after the FAA chief proposed fining Musk's company, SpaceX, over $600,000 in civil penalties for failing to follow license requirements during 2 launches back in 2023. Whitaker told a congressional panel at the time that fines were, quote, the only tool we have to get compliance on safety matters. Musk apparently repeatedly attacked Whitaker from his X account, claiming in one post that the FAA was harassing SpaceX by fining them for violating the law. That's what harassment is, I guess. It's election interference, I think. But anyway, Musk also replied to a Twitter poster who said the FAA, quote, should not exist, and attacked Whitaker for preventing his goal of colonizing Mars, which is definitely coming in a couple of years. Believe the hype, never learn, never learn. But anyway, since he was forced out because Elon Musk cared more about what happens financially with SpaceX than whether FAA has leadership right now, we had an acting FAA chief. This is the Deputy Administrator, Chris Rocheleau, who was only sworn in just last week. And so, kind of bad, theoretically, if you lose your leadership. It's also bad if the loss of that leadership comes just a few days after many of those air traffic controllers received an ultimatum that they should potentially quit, that they should get the hell out of there. And so thankfully we have a little bit of a dialing back of that. But also, and I just read this earlier today, an email apparently went out from the Office of Personnel Management to a lot of government employees, including air traffic controllers, telling them to quit their jobs, saying, we encourage you to find a job in the private sector as soon as you would like to do so. So bear in mind, we don't know for sure that the understaffing of air traffic controllers, the understaffing at the FAA caused this crash, but it certainly didn't help. And both before and now after the crash, their solution is get rid of the ones that remain. We don't want as many because that costs money. And remember, Elon Musk, who at least when it comes to stuff like this seems to be the person who's actually pulling the strings on this administration, wants to fire as many people as possible. And so that's the mission, and they're doing it. And so again, we can't say for sure that this is what caused it any more than we could say deaf or blind people do. I think one seems a little bit more reasonable, but Cenk, what do you make of this?
Yeah, so first of all, let's talk about regulation. So Republicans have said my whole life, regulation is a dirty word, you should never do regulation. How about when planes might run into helicopters? Could we use regulation then? Hey, you go left, you go right. You might need regulation there, right? And so you can say, well, that's a safety issue. Yes, a lot of things are safety issues. For example, how do you treat your workers in an assembly line? That's a safety issue. And that is a regulation that deals with that. And so they made a regulation a dirty word because it usually costs corporations money. So now, should we have more regulations here? No, not necessarily. It depends how many, what do we have? What is our process? So if I'm a family member, actually, let me read Mad Energy here. He wrote it on Super Chat. And I wanted to address it. He said 68 people died. The president just came out and said DEI. Others said Trump is racist. Who said sorry for your loss? So what I got out of that, and thanks for participating with the show, is that if I'm a family member of someone who died, I'm thinking, what the hell actually went wrong here, right? So did the helicopter pilot not listen? Did they not hear air traffic control? Because nobody voluntarily runs into a plane, right? Or did the plane not hear? Where was the breakdown in communication that led to this disaster? And because I want to fix it so no one else dies like my family member did, right? That's how a normal person would handle it. And that's how we should handle it as a government. Hey, what went wrong and how do we fix it? But instead, we have what the viewer there is referring to. So Trump comes out and goes, DEI. And again, we just told you yesterday on the show that yes, there was a diversity program that was problematic a decade ago, right? But you think that's what, you're sure that's what caused this crash? That thing from a decade ago? No, you're just trying to avoid responsibility and go, remember, blame minorities. Everything is blame minorities. And so, by the way, they're abusing that. I mean, they're doing it in every issue. Every time something goes wrong, they're like DEI, right? Fires in LA, DEI. Plane crash, DEI. So, you remember the people who voted for Trump, there's a core group of MAGA that's never gonna change their mind, right? But when you get to the outer edges, or you get to the independents that the Democrats lost, and that hated the establishment, didn't believe the establishment, and they didn't like the status quo and they went with Trump. Those guys are not hardcore MAGA. And so Trump and MAGA and all those guys are making a mistake. Every time they say, oh yeah, it's the black people or the dwarves, right? As Jesse Waters said, more black people, Latinos, women, certainly people in the LGBTQ community to go, oh, so they're just gonna blame us for everything. Okay, that's point one. And point two is people in the middle are gonna go, this is dumb. You think black people caused everything? You think that a lesbian firefighter caused the fires in LA? This is just dumb. You're not trying to fix the problem. You're trying to give political spin to it so you don't get blamed, and that's gross. So, and that applies to other folks who are just saying, hey, I know already. Look, so Trump fired a bunch of people related to the FAA. Elon Musk, I don't know that the FAA head not being there caused it. Let's again go to the black boxes and actually figure out what caused it. But now we're all speculating because we don't have the answer yet. If you ask me to speculate, one, does it matter that the FAA doesn't have a chief? Definitely. Now, if you want to get rid of him, okay, at least have a plan, have somebody ready to replace him, be grown-ups, be adults, right? Because once an organization is leaderless, you would be shocked at how quickly it devolves. Now, he resigned on the 20th, so I don't know that it devolved in 10 days and caused the problem, right? But it eventually can. And there's this idea that Elon Musk has started on the right wing. Guys, if you're a populist, you should actually hate this idea. His thing is, you don't need workers. You just fire all the workers.
Yep.
Fire 2/3 of the workers or 3/4 of them on X, who cares? Fire the head of the FAA, who cares? You don't need anyone. Workers are annoying. Workers are the average American worker is the problem, right? The oligarchs are the answer. And why did he get the head of the FAA fired? Come on, if you're a right-wing populist, you're really gonna pretend that it was anything other than he was mad that he got fined $600,000, right? And the $600,000 is nothing to him, nothing. He's just like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you interfere with me with your stupid safety regulations? And if you think that's not gonna cause a problem with safety at some point, you're wrong. But as I keep saying, I think the politicians that literally voted to increase the number of flights out of Reagan when they were warned not to do it. By the way, Senator Tim Kaine, who I'm usually very annoyed with, did a great job of arguing in that particular debate. We don't want to come back to a scenario like this. He was totally right, okay? One of the rare politicians who was right, and others like, yeah, but I need to get back home quick, both to see, the state, do constituents, etc., but also to raise money, right? So they needed more flights. Well, if you're gonna put more flights, you gotta put more air traffic control. And if you don't, well, sometimes things like this happen. So to me, that's the more likely answer. But that doesn't make anybody overly happy because it doesn't blame one of the two political sides. Both sets of politicians, Democrats and Republicans in Congress, voted to increase the number of flights, but not the number of air traffic controllers. Ramesh.
Yeah, the goal is to hire almost nobody. And for a lot of tech oligarchs, the goal is to automate out labor, right? Which is going to create huge economic gulfs and widen the sort of amplification of inequality that we see. And so DEI is just a red herring for the bigger program that we see very clearly that the Trump administration and someone like Elon Musk are all about, which is austerity, cutting entitlement programs, cutting programs that protect people, especially middle and working class people. So we should look at actually what their actions are, which are to go after, in some cases, the people that actually voted for Trump. So this is austerity. And cutting of these programs is always going to target the most vulnerable people. And remember, Musk has a long history of being anti-union, anti-worker, big-time union buster. If you look at many cases involving Tesla, for example, we see this again and again. Remember, people are a nuisance because you have to protect them. You have to take care of them. You might even have to deal with their benefits and healthcare and pensions and so on. So the entire goal is to be rid of as many workers as possible so that these guys can basically continue to just take up the profits and so on. I really hope this doesn't work, but what we need as progressives is an absolute clear populist leader who can challenge all of these things. I think Bernie does that to some extent, but I think we also need some other voices that really are gonna step up to the plate and call this all out and set up a new type of equalism that actually helps people out.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.